The circulatory system is an organ system that permits blood and lymph circulation to transport nutrients, oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, blood cells, to and from cells in the body to nourish it and help to fight diseases, stabilize body temperature, pH, and to maintain homeostasis. The left ventricle contracts, pushing red blood cells into the aorta, the body's largest artery. From here, blood moves through a series of increasingly smaller arteries until it reaches a capillary, the junction between arteries and veins. Here, oxygen molecules detach from the red blood cells and slip across the capillary wall into the body tissue. Now deoxygenated, blood begins to return to the heart. It passes through increasingly larger veins to eventually reach the right atrium. It enters the right ventricle, which pumps it through the pulmonary artery into the lungs to pick up more oxygen. Oxygenated, blood re-enters the left atrium, moves into the left ventricle, and the blood's journey begins again. Now to go deeper into the circulatory system, starting with specialized cells. The red blood cell is responsible for carrying oxygen to the cells of the body, taking up carbon dioxide and returning it to the lungs so it can be released. Red blood cells are circular and biconcave in shape and are elastic so they can pass through any small capillaries, making the blood flow easily. White blood cells in the blood are round, but they can change shape outside the circulation. They have densely staining acentric nuclei. The sparse cytoplasm may contain a few lysosome-like granules. Once activated, the amount of cytoplasm increases. B cells and natural killer cells tend to be larger than T cells. The cells are differentiated by the presence of differing surface markers. They produce antibodies and kill foreign or virally altered cells. Platelets are small, disc-shaped cell fragments that do not have a nucleus. They are derived from fragmentation of precursor megakaryocytes. They circulate in the blood of mammals and are involved in hemostasis, leading to the formation of blood clots. Plasma is a liquid in the blood which transports dissolved substances around the body, including hormones, antibodies, nutrients such as water, glucose, amino acids, minerals, and vitamins, and waste substances such as carbon dioxide and urea. Moving on to the tissues. The epithelial tissue is a protective tissue that covers the entire body. It is made up of the closely packed cells in one or more layers. Epithelial tissue is found inside the body, also called the endothelium. Epithelial tissue usually sits on top of a thin layer of connective tissue, called the basement membrane. In the circulatory system, epithelial tissue can be found in the structure of the arteries, veins, capillaries, and it also covers the heart. Muscle tissue is made up of the muscle cells, which are able to contract, whether that is involuntarily or on demand. This is the tissue that enables us to move our whole body or just certain parts. Muscle tissue also creates involuntary movement inside our bodies in every organ system. The main organ of the circulatory system, the heart, is considered a muscle and therefore is largely made up of muscle tissue. The nervous tissue's main function is to react to stimuli and send impulses to various organs around the body. This type of tissue is made up of neurons, a specialized type of cell. These cells are highly responsive, which means that they react quickly to stimuli. The nervous tissue is made up of nerve cell fibers embedded in connective tissue. This tissue is important to the circulatory system because it helps the brain to transmit messages to all the components of the circulatory system. Without this tissue, the circulatory system would not function. The connective tissue is sometimes referred to as the glue that holds the body together. It is the most common and plentiful type of tissue in the entire body. The connective tissue consists of widely spread cells, and its job is to connect, support, or surround other tissues and organs. The connective tissue is what makes up the structure of not only the circulatory system, but also of the other organ systems as well. This tissue can be found in the walls of the arteries, veins, and capillaries, and of course in the makeup of the whole heart. Moving on to the main organs of the circulatory system. The human heart has 4 chambers. The 2 upper chambers are the atria, and the 2 lower chambers are the ventricles. The intertracheal septum separates the 2 atria, and intraventricular septum is the partition between the 2 ventricles. The right atrium and the right ventricle are connected through a tricuspid valve. As the name suggests, it has 3 leaflets or cusps. On the other side, the left atrium and ventricle are connected through a bicuspid valve. The bicuspid valve is also called the mitral valve because of its resemblance to a bishop's 2-sided mitre or hat. The leaflets of the atrioventricular valves are connected to fibrous tissues called the chordae tendineae, which in turn are attached to papillary muscles. Contraction and relaxation of these muscles make the valves open and close. These are also valves at the opening of the pulmonary trunk and the aorta. These are called the pulmonary valve and the aortic valve. These 2 valves are semilunar. The characteristic dub-blub sound is produced during the closing of the heart valves. The thickness of the walls of the 4 heart chambers varies with their functions. The walls of the atria are thinner than those of the ventricles. The left ventricle pumps blood at a greater distance and a higher pressure. Therefore, the wall of the left ventricle is thicker than that of the right ventricle. Communication in the circulatory system. A rise in blood pressure stretches the atria of the heart. This triggers the release of atrial natriuretic peptide, or ANP. ANP is a peptide of 28 amino acids. ANP lowers blood pressure by relaxing atrioles, inhibiting the secretion of renin and aldosterone, and lastly, inhibiting the reabsorption of sodium ions in the collecting ducts of the kidneys.